Good evening. I'm Lakeithia Glenn, the Executive Director of LITE Memphis, and we're here to have a very important conversation about racial unrest, the coronavirus pandemic, and all that's happening in the world and how it's affecting our youth. We do not want to have this conversation without the voices of the students we serve. So we are here to welcome you, to listen to you, and to start the first of a series of conversations that we plan to have with our students and the public about ways we can not only talk about what's happening, but fix it. When everything and all the unrest started to happen on May 25th, I came to a point where I could not move. I was paralyzed and I did not know what my next step was. But I started thinking about our students and one thought kept coming to mind. We should have done the work so our children wouldn't have to. But they are here and here we are. And I cannot tell you how happy I am to introduce the host and the person that will be taking you on in this journey and in this conversation. She is the winner of our 2020 Pitch Night. Please help me welcome Lauren Rounds.
First, I want to thank everyone for listening today. I want to thank LITE Memphis for entrusting me to lead this conversation. I want to thank my guests today, Mr. Julian Cross, Ms. Marissa Pittman, Ms. LaShonda Massey, and the Executive Director of LITE Memphis, Ms. Lakeithia Glenn. And this will be a bonus episode of I Tell America Voices of Gen Z, and I'm so excited for today. So first, I want to start off this conversation by asking everyone this question. How have you all been coping with the social unrest that's been going on in our world today? How have you been dealing with just seeing the Black lives being lost and the things that we've been seeing our people go through as a community?
I will say the way that I've been coping. I am a licensed clinical psychologist, so I've been spending quite a bit of time providing therapy services for everyone that is going through these trying times. So being in that space of having to deal with what my own reactions are and my own family and friends, and then also being able to provide a space where others can come and discuss the things that are impacting them and how they're dealing with that. So I would say one of the most important ways that I've been dealing with that is creating space for conversations and allowing those conversations to be raw and authentic, place for emotions to exist, where people can really talk about how it is making them feel and what they need to do to manage those very overwhelming feelings.
Wow, I feel like that's very important. And thank you for all the work you've been doing, Dr. Massey. I looked at your website and I was blown away. I appreciate that work being done in the Black community. It's very nice to see.
Thank you, and I appreciate you doing your research prior to the show. That's good work.
Of course. Thank you. What about you, Julian? How have you been dealing with these trying times that we're going through right now?
Similar to Dr. Massey, I feel like it's important that we talk about the situation. We can't just let it, sit out there and we do nothing. As Gen Z, we are the voices who are known for speaking up. As millennials, we are the voices who are known for being direct. And
Right.
I feel like it's important for each and every one of us to have somebody to talk to about it. I personally have several mentors who I have open discussions about it, Black, white, brown, yellow, red, any race, any color. I talk to them about it because
that's good.
Their opinion. I want to get their piece in on what they feel about what's going on. I mean, I have my personal opinions and they have theirs. I want to have that race talk. I want to have that conversation to, get down to how we can, enact change.
Of course, I feel like it's very important that everyone speaks, and we're not going to come together for a solution until each and every one of us from every community can come together and have a decent, progressive conversation about it. So I feel like that's really important. What about you, Marissa? What do you feel like you've been doing to keep yourself together in these times?
Well, it's been hard. It has been very hard. So I'm a community organizer, I guess you could say, by trade. So when I see things like the videos of George Floyd, which I couldn't even fathom, I watched the first couple of seconds and I had to click off because it does something to you. And that I couldn't deal with that. And so I've been trying to be very patient with myself and acknowledging not only are we in the middle of coronavirus, we're also in the middle of something that we already knew was happening, the pandemic, racism. And so that's something that I have really just been trying to allow myself to feel all of my feelings, you know, recognizing that these are valid emotions, that it's okay to be mad, and then moving in my work from there. Also, I've been trying to garden. I haven't been very successful, but I've been trying to, you know, do something that is still positive in this moment, because it can be really hard to find something positive.
Wow, I really love that answer, especially the gardening. I just want to throw this in there. I feel like it's very important sometimes because a lot of Generation Z gets their news and all of their where they find out things from social media, and we see a lot of things there. I know the first time I came upon the George Floyd video, I'm a very emotional person by nature, and just like you, I couldn't watch the full thing at first. So, I mean, we have to be very careful with how much we expose ourselves to these type of things on a daily basis, because it does take a mental hit to you. So I've been very careful with how much I pick up my phone and go on Instagram and go on Twitter, because constantly getting hit with these emotional videos and posts and petitions, it's good to open yourself up to these things, but you're also supposed to be mindful of how much you're exposing yourself to. So I just wanted to say that very quickly. What does the new normal look like for you, the world post-pandemic? Like, what do you see happening, or how do you see it going?
The new normal for me has been, not gonna lie, it's been great. I think, like, it put some things into perspective for me, as far as work, as far as my health, as far as, you know, just me in general. Before COVID hit, I was working a job, and once it hit, all the interns got laid off, and so I was one of those interns, and I was wondering, and I was praying, like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with my time? Because I'm one of those people. I have to be hands on with something. I lose my mind. And I said, well, let me go find something that I like, that I can get into. So I said, well, I was doing social media as an intern at the office. So I said, let me look for a job surrounded by social media and graphic design. So I went online and I scrolled down on Google looking for jobs, and I found this job at a church. And me, I'm a church boy, so
Nothing wrong with that.
I said, I gotta apply for this job. So I applied for the job, and when I was looking at the requirements, I was like, this does not seem like it's for me. But something said, go ahead and click apply. So I clicked apply, and a few weeks later, I get a call back for an interview.
Wow.
I was like, wow, me? You want me for an interview? Like, so I went on the interview, and I totally rocked it. It was one of the best interviews that I think I've ever done in my whole 19 years of living. And they offered me the job during COVID-19, which is, unusual for people during this time. So that's been a blessing. On top of that, I've been able to have several other opportunities to come through for me. And it just seems like COVID-19 has just been good to me. Hopefully I don't catch COVID-19. We're going to pray that. But
Yeah.
Yes.
It's totally been good to me.
I see what you mean. So a lot of people have been saying that there is, like, we're never going to get to go back to normal after this pandemic. And I was wondering, how did you feel that way? Do you feel like this is the new normal?
Me and my mentor actually had that conversation the other day about, what will it look like, 3 months from now or 6 months from now. I'm predicting that we're probably still going to be in this place. I don't think we'll ever be the same as far as, social interaction. But I do feel like social media has played a big part in us still staying social.
Right.
But as far as us from even 3 months, 6 months from now, I feel like we're gonna still be in this same predicament because of, you know, the severity of the situation. Just recently, you know, the numbers of cases in Shelby County has spiked again. So it's really, I'm just predicting it's gonna stay on that trend. I mean, we have 4th of July coming up. That's a big holiday. A lot of people are gonna want to get out. While they're out, I'm gonna be at home, staying at home.
Stay safe. Social distancing is very important. Marissa, do you feel this way, or do you feel differently from Julian? Do you feel like it'll be different after this entire pandemic is over?
You know, I hope it will be different. I hope that I think extreme circumstances really reveal what's happening underneath the surface. And I think in America, we've learned a lot, or people maybe who haven't really been exposed to the working poor and people who are just barely making it, and they're working 40 plus hours a week and they still can't feed their families. They're seeing that reality now. And I feel like hopefully things can change as far as the governmental side of things due to this. And I also would say, I hope that our elections will also change, like making sure that people have no excuse absentee ballots for every election, like period. That's something that definitely should happen. We've seen what happened in Wisconsin, New York, Kentucky, all these different places when you don't allow people access to the polls. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about and stuff that I've been working on now in this moment. But also, as far as like graduation, I was a senior this year, and so I missed out on that.
Oh, I'm so
and
sorry.
Prom, yeah, it's okay now because I have my diploma. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I'm hoping that things can get better, so next year seniors don't have to deal with that, because that's really tough. Like just watching your days sitting at home on prom night, that was really hard. And so yeah, that's something that definitely I hope will change. But then something that I've also been struggling with is like cases are spiking in America, but then you have other countries like New Zealand, and they've pretty much eradicated COVID-19 in their country. And it's just like you see what different leaders, like you see the difference that leadership makes and why organizing and political advocacy is so important. And so that's what I've really been getting out to my friends and just people, like, if you want to see why your vote matters, this is a prime example.
Can you kind of elaborate on your business that you mentioned, Pumps and Politics 901?
Yes, thank you for that question. So during my freshman year of high school, I started Pumps and Politics 901. It's an organization that amplifies the voice of young women of color in politics, specifically young Black women, with the goal that you will become civically engaged. And for my work, I've received the National Civil Rights Museum Keeper of the Dream Award, which awards young people for their activism and just making the world a better place.
Yes.
Thank you. And it's the youth version of the Freedom Award. And so Mahatma Gandhi won the award earlier on, like after I guess he was alive. Obviously, Usher won the award, Vice President Joe Biden, lots of people, Ruby Bridges. And so I'm excited to be a recipient of that.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then something that we've been doing during COVID, which we actually just wrapped up, was a Self-Care Monday, which was an evening of healing, art, and meditation. And then they loved it. They said, "Oh, are you going to do this again, Marissa?" And honestly, I was not planning on it, but I am.
But you are. You're going to invite Dr. Massey.
I will. And you can follow us on Instagram at Pumps Politics 901, and then on Facebook, just search Pumps and Politics 901. We're in the middle of a relaunch, though, so please do not judge our appearance on social media. We're under construction.
I appreciate that. Would you say that the current state of the U.S. socially is having a great effect on the Black community mentally?
A resounding yes. um, said in a couple of other spaces. I have heard the words mental health more in the last 3 months than I've heard in my whole 15, 20-year career of being a mental health service provider, because it's always been traditionally much more of a taboo around mental health, and people don't want to talk about that. But the reality is trauma is real, and it has an impact on all of us. So as you all talked about just your own experience of trying to watch a video and becoming emotionally overwhelmed and needing to stop it and process kind of what's going on with that, and then really being able to sit in what is really happening and consider the dangers of life, whether racism that has been encountered, or trying to find your own voice or your own action. So people are really struggling to figure out how to deal with all this that is going on, because we haven't taught people that. So I know that as a mental health provider, we're not teaching mental health in school. People aren't learning about ways to cope. People don't have a therapist that they can go see and make sure they're checking in on their mental health, because we have not made it important. We haven't made it something that people do. So when you are having all that bottled in and you don't have appropriate places to release it, or appropriate people to talk to, or you just be strong, you don't want anybody to know that you're upset or you're bothered, I can handle it, I'm tough. We really are experiencing things that can have long-term negative effects for us. So I want to make sure, especially why I come into spaces like this, to say that we are talking about these things have genuine impact, and they come out in different ways. They come out in anger, so people want to riot and loot and burn up things because they're mad. In fear, and people don't want to be involved, and they shut down. They come out in sadness, to just kind of see that. I would say my own participation in protests most recently was the moms coming together, and they said, you know, hearing him talk about calling for his mom and what that means to a mother, to know that you can't help your child. There's so many emotions, so many different ways, and we are so ill-equipped to deal with that. So I think that these times are going to have quite an impact. But I'm also in the camp with Marissa. I think when I hear you all talk with such passion and clarity and understanding about what's going on in these times, that you're willing to make some changes, and that we can be in a space where we can talk about what are we going to do about it, and that we're willing to take care of self. So I think it will have an impact, but we are in a space where it can have a positive impact as well, that is teaching us to be aware of our mental health and what our emotions are, and how do we manage that, and what spaces do we need to connect with so that we can deal with that effectively. So I'm also hopeful that in that I'm hearing the words so much more, that people are talking about emotions, and that we are really taking the time to learn how to do that. So yes, there will be an emotional impact, and let's build all the tools that we can to make it not be an impact that destroys us, but uplifts us.
Right. And I love, now that you're hearing, you know, that word, the phrase mental health thrown around so much more, and people are more willing to listen and more willing to get some help. What are some resources? Like, not everybody can go to a therapist, like you said, or, you know, have people in their space that they can go to and talk to. What are some resources that you know of that people can use in this time to help get their feelings out?
Interestingly enough, as you all were talking about, there have been some solid resources coming up in the social media spaces for people to be able to do that, or connect with things. So there's more advanced things like Talkspace, which is a therapy service that you can sign up for and actually do telehealth based therapy. So that's opening up a lot for other people. I've started doing telehealth during this time of COVID. I've been at home for 3 months providing service telehealth. There are also other solid people that you can find on social media. There's Therapy for Black Girls, and they have different podcasts or different safe places that you can log in and be a part of the group that's talking and supporting things that are going on. So it's been interesting for me to find, I mean, some of them are a little sketchy. So you want to make looking at the good stuff and not just any old body telling you, look for some credentials, make sure it's a doctor or somebody with a few letters behind their name. I think there's Coffee, Hip Hop and Mental Health is another one that does some good stuff where they're talking about some things. So it is actually growing that people are okay talking about it, and that we're finding some resources that people can connect to that don't that aren't simply about being in a therapeutic environment. So you can access some things in that way, but also be willing to look for some individual spaces if need be. I can't overstate how important it is to have a genuine individual therapeutic relationship with someone that can help you address yourself personally. So I don't ever downplay the importance of having a personal connection just as much as you can have some of those group-based experiences.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I did start listening to Therapy for Black Girls, and I would recommend it. It's actually really nice to listen to. Her voice is very soothing. Marissa, so with you being a part of Generation Z, I feel like this is important to ask. If you look back 10 years from now, do you feel like you could say that you raised your voice and you did enough to speak out for the Black community?
I would say yes, yes, and yes.
I'm glad to hear
I
it.
mean, but there's always, I think, and this is something that I have struggled with, is like, you always wish that you could do more. But then something that I've had to like really make sure that I tell myself is that you can't undo years of oppression in one day. And
Yes.
that's okay. And I'm going to contribute as much as I can contribute today. And I'll keep going tomorrow. And so I hope that 10 years from now, things will look very different. Yeah.
Wow, I love that answer. I've been signing petitions like crazy. Like my fingers are getting tired, but it's
I
like
feel
whenever
you.
I see one, it's like, man, my signature can do something and help this person progress and do all this stuff. And I've been trying to, retweet, reshare, and, I'm talking on my podcast, trying to get out the word about everything. So it's hard. It's hard work and it's emotional work. And that's why I was saying we have to be, careful and be patient with ourselves, just like you were saying. So, yeah. Also, how has being from Memphis affected like your outlook on police brutality, protesting, and just racism, period?
Memphis is a majority Black city. And so a lot of times I think about how sometimes there are systems that, well, not sometimes, there are systems that oppress us, and then it can be perpetuated by our own stereotypes.
Right.
And that's something that I've really just been thinking about lately. Also, I would say when I was really starting to get into my activism, because for the longest time, I did not like when people called me an activist, but that's a story for another day. That was when Commissioner Sawyer was leading Take 'em Down 901. And so that was really revolutionary for me, because it was like, I can do something like that, and that we can have our grievances for our government, and we can be bold, and we can say what we want to say. We can vote, we can mobilize people, go to the polls, and really air out our grievances there too. And so it really just told me that there really is no limit. Also, my mentor, Representative London Lamar, she has really helped me see that, like, there is no one way to be an activist. Like, you can do whatever you need to do within your lane, and that's so important. That's why when you asked me earlier about what can people do, like, just find your lane. I think that's really important within this work. But more specifically in Memphis, I feel like I would personally love to see a Black female mayor. We've never had one. And that's something I'm just like, well, that's how Pumps and Politics honestly was started, because I was looking around at my student council meeting, and I was the only Black girl in the meeting. And White Station is very diverse. So I was like, where are we? And then I realized that's what it looks like on the local level, the state level, and nationally, and really internationally too. And that's a problem. And so being in Memphis, it was just like, it's just been a way for me to really say, I can represent my people, and I don't have to compromise on that. And that's something that's really stuck with me.
I'm sorry, I just have to add to something that Marissa said that's very important about activism. For the longest time, I supported every cause I could think of, but I would do it through a donation or silently. In the last several weeks, since I've seen these protests, something has ignited in me, has, in other words, activated me to want to be a part of the change. So being a part of protests and starting these conversations, I no longer want to be the silent advocate. I it activated me in a way that I have not felt before. I've not felt this burning desire to be a part of this change. And it's so interesting, the dynamic of it all. The young people that's having the conversation is kind of what's fueling my fire. So it's very different. So my question is, I have to ask this question. What do the panelists think is making this movement so much different than the movements before this time?
I feel like there are a lot more resources, because you have to think about it. With Dr. King, we weren't as connected nationally as we are now. We have so many resources. We have social media, we have emails, we have all this stuff. I know I subscribe to, you guys know, Sean King. He has his emails that he does, and I reply to them. I try and get as much as I can. So it's not only a physical thing and, you know, the boycotts. It's like we're doing things on a worldwide level. We're able to go online and we're able to take them virtually and physically. We are able to dig in their pockets like they did with the boycotts, but we're able to hit them in a more empowered way. And I feel like we're more linked together than ever because of like the technology that we have today. Like she said, she's leading virtual protests. We weren't able to do that in Dr. King's time, and that's really important for us. So I feel like that's one of the ways we're kind of different now than we were before. So yeah.
I think I agree with you that there are a lot of connectedness that wasn't there before. And also I think it has a lot of to do with the differences in the time. Think about you all as young people and how you are and the access you have to knowledge of your own, that it's not just what people have to give you, but you can search it out and find it. So I feel like, you know, Lakeithia and I, you know, we were coming through our day, and what we did was, you know, get to the grind, and we were working hard to excel and make progress and position ourselves to be successful. So we weren't as busy protesting and changing the policy. We were making it and making room and making space. And some of those spaces have been made, then there's room for another generation to come in science. And now let's move mountains in this space that we're in. So we were busy creating space at the table, and now, you know, you guys can come on through and knock some chairs down that we're in here, and we need this in change.
Yeah.
I think it's that shared awareness that we can really work together to move some things. And I love that you guys are saying find your own lane, because the more we can understand the intricacies of that we have to have things happening on so many different levels to really be able to make a movement and not just a moment. So I think now people really are feeling more confident in their lane, and that pay for me to say it out loud, and my job is not as in much jeopardy if I say so. We came through in a time where you might literally lose your job and can't find another one if you said too much or went too loud. We've moved the needle some, where people coming behind us feel a lot more confident in standing up for those things and pushing against the workplace to be different. So I think a lot of it has to do with the silent work that we did before in those spaces that created more room for things to be done, more aggressively now and more out in the open now, and that we're all willing to join in at this level and say, this is where I can fit in, this is what I can do. So it's so important to be able to feel like I can operate from where I am, where my hands can touch. So if they're marching in Washington and I can't get there, I feel like I'm kind of out of it. But like you said, I can say, oh, they need to vote in Kentucky, they need some snacks. I can send a little donation to make sure they buy some more. Then we're making sure the folks vote in Kentucky in their 2-hour line that we're not even having a primary in Memphis. So I like the idea, as you always saying, we're connected enough to be able to really move things in so many different levels, and that's how we get real change.
Right. All right. Would you like to share your opinion, Marissa?
Sure. I think another piece of our connectedness is that everyone's basically at home right now. And so you really don't have a lot of things getting your attention. And if you keep seeing this thing of Black people getting killed by the police after just keep going, that will do something to you. And I think that's really what's been mobilizing people. And for a lot of activists who have been on the ground for a long time, it feels different. And also I would say sometimes it can be a little frustrating because people who are just now getting into this, a lot of times we've seen that they're trying to lead movements and they don't really know how. And so we definitely want you, welcome in, you know, but at the same time, I would urge everyone listening to this, if you do decide to go to a protest, please, and I'll say one more time, please take heed of the young Black organizers that are there who have been doing the work, because that's been a lot of what you've seen on TV of people rioting. Those are people acting alone. And so that's also something that I think should be brought to the forefront, is that everybody's not rioting. And then also I would say that this moment is different because people, I think, are fed up. And you can tell. And I think that's great because you can channel that energy into actually like movement work. And also, I just want to shout out my friend, Allie Smith. She's been doing a lot of great work in Memphis when it comes to mobilizing young people. So shout out to her.
Wow, I'm loving this conversation so much. Like, I cannot tell y'all. I love your perspective on politics, and it's nice to see a young Black woman taking this kind of initiative in politics. I know it's not a lot of conversations I get in where people are this passionate, and who knows, I hope that you can be our first female Black mayor, our first Black female mayor. What is something that you guys have learned about yourselves during this time with the pandemic and the racial injustice? We can start off with you, Marissa.
I've learned a lot about myself, but one thing that's really stuck out to me is that I am resilient. Missing out on graduation and prom, like I mentioned earlier, like you never imagine, oh, okay, so we're gonna have homecoming, but after homecoming, we're gonna go into spring break and we won't come back. Like you never think that. And so missing out on that was big. And also shifting pumps in politics in the middle of our relaunch and like dropping everything to just focus on advocating for the budget and making sure that it's an equitable budget in the county, and then still like making sure that Black women have that space that they need for self-care, and focusing that as a priority. I think that's really shown me like that if something needs to happen, I can help make it happen. And that's really been my big takeaway from COVID-19 and racial injustice.
I love it. I love it so much. Dr. Massey?
Say the things I've learned about myself the most is that I have to do better at following my own advice. I go on, do my therapy sessions or go on podcasts, do what I do, and I'm very big on telling people self-care, and self-care isn't selfish, and make sure you're getting enough rest, and we don't value that time where we shut down and refuel and get ready to do it again. And I'm very guilty of, I don't know how to stop. And it's like, I think I can get one more client in. And so I will do that. So I'm learning that. And it's not in all things. In much other spaces, I'm much better at following my own advice. But I've learned that one really is hard for me to turn it down and make sure that I'm taking care of self. So I've been a lot more willing to hear people to tell me, so when are you taking a break? I've had or girlfriends checking in and say, okay, so how's the one who's taking care of everybody else? And that's reminding me to make sure I am doing that. So that's what I've learned about myself, is that I'm not as good at the self-care. Hence I said, invite me to the self-care night because I need some help.
It sounds really nice. What about you, Ms. Lakeithia? What have you learned about yourself?
You know, I would have to agree with Dr. Massey. I'm not great at self-care. I encourage my staff to disconnect and take a moment, but I'm not great at that myself. But what I've learned about myself throughout this process, that I am a very passionate person. And it is coming through in everything that's happening. I care about my students at LITE with a passion that you can't even imagine. I take every trouble and I kind of carry it with me. And I'm very passionate about doing the work because what we are finding is that I have spent my whole career in the nonprofit sector, and nonprofits play a significant role in what's going on right now. Nonprofits are feeding people during COVID. Nonprofits are mobilizing people right now for the unrest, and we play a significant role. And I found that my passion for people, for life, for humanity will probably forever keep me in the nonprofit sector. But through this, I have kind of identified who I am as a person. I'm a passionate person that believes that philanthropy keeps the world going. And that's something that I'll take with me throughout this process.
I would have to agree with you, Ms. Akithia. Starting this podcast has been something so amazing for me. I've learned that I can actually sit down and be consistent with something. I've been terrible with consistency so many times. I've set a goal and not follow through with it. And I have to say, a big part of me continuing and keeping it going with this show is LITE Memphis. If you guys wouldn't have helped me with building a solid foundation and teaching me how to set goals, my SMART goals, and all of that, it just came into a big point with this show. And I feel like I'm so passionate about everything that I've said. Especially my first episode. It's been my favorite one so far. I loved it. But yeah, it's just taught me that I can do something when I really set my mind to it and be passionate about it. And also I've learned that, the Black community is very powerful. I'm only 15, so I haven't really been that aware for that long, but I've been listening and I've been putting my ear down to the ground, and to look at so many Black faces and so many, just the people of color, our communities, period, are just so powerful and so progressive. And we're doing such an amazing job with keeping it together and keeping it pushing, because so many times we let the torch die down and just, we forget about, what we're doing and why we're here, and we forget to keep going. But we've been doing a very good job of being consistent about it. And you guys have any closing remarks you'd like to share?
Lauren, I'll let you have the last word on this, but let me say this. Since I've been at LITE, it's been an amazing experience. And of the almost 300 students that have gone through the program, every single one I have met is very representative of Lauren and Marissa and Julian. You're all have your hand on the pulse of what's going on. You all are able to have these conversations, and I'm just so impressed with this group and who you all are as young people. Don't ever stop that, and don't ever lose that passion. I will say this. At George Floyd's Memorial, I stood for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in silence. They will probably be the most important 8 minutes and 46 seconds of my life. I came out of that moment changed and wanting to find a solution, and I certainly think that you all are the solution. So I thank you for taking this time and having this conversation and being willing to continue the conversation.
So for everyone listening, please don't forget about Pumps and Politics 901 from the amazing Miss Marissa Pittman. You guys, she has blown me away with her description of her business and just the passion that she has for it. It's so refreshing to see. I love it so much. If there's any way we can partner up, I would love to do that. Dr. Massey, your work is so important, and I love that you've been doing this for 15, 20 years. It's not very often that you see Black female therapists, and to see one and to have you here in this space is just so amazing for me. You guys are all helping me with.
Let's encourage other people to visit the website. I'll put some things up every now and then that are very encouraging and teachers.
Right.
Help. So go to drilpmassey.com sometimes and get a little bit more information for your mental health.
You said you're doing sessions over the phone. Is that correct?
Telehealth. I have been doing telehealth sessions since COVID hit. Mm-hmm.
So is there any way for some new people to come through and get a session? Or
it sure is. That's on the website as well. So if you go to the website, there's an appointment page, and you can shoot me a message and I can get it from there.
Right. I cannot say this loud enough, you guys. Mental health is so important. So
say it louder.
So if you guys are looking for any help with your mental health, please go to Dr. Massey, because just so amazing. So I think that is it for today, you guys. I want to thank you so much for joining us on I Too Am America Voices of Gen Z. This is Lauren Rounds, and I'm signing off.